All right, Rabbosai, good morning. Let us begin. Baruch Hashem, a good Chodesh. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors. Emir Hashem for. I think our Tishrei sponsors get one more day. Baruch Hashem, good. Makes sense. Good. So to thank our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei, Dr. Alana Weinberg, Sarah and Ricky Gratz, Julia, Rena, and Eve, in loving memory of their husband, father, Zayda, Dr. Paul Weinberg, Paris, Moshe Ben Avram David. To thank Ayal and Sara Steinberg for dedicating the shiurim this month in the zechus of refuah shelema for shulamis bas susha, Adam and Yudit Ben Zev. In the zechus of all of our tefillos being miskabel. Our week of learning sponsors Avi Zysman, creation of the yahrzeit of his grandfather Avraham ben Aharon, Tzvi and Shir in honor of the Kehila, and Shmuel and Shira Pepper in honor of Ari Lerner and all he does for the shul. Our day of learning sponsors, Gail and Doug Stanger, in memory of Gail's mother and Alana Weinberg's and family's grandmother, Mamam, Fruma Bella bas Chaya V Leib, zichron livracha, and the anonymous dedication as zechus for good health and besoros tovos for Rachel bas Chana Pesha. We hope none of the merit of our TALMUD Torah, all the neshamas have an aliyah, the families in Nechama, all those who require a refuah should have one together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. Rabbi, with that, let us begin today a Guten Chodesh. What a zechus it is, Baruch Hashem, to learn this beautiful, beautiful Gemara together on Rosh Chodesh. Rabbi, today's daf is Kuf Yud Aleph, second to last daf in Maseches Kesuvos. We are picking up Emir Hashem on Kuf Yud Amud Beis 110b, and I believe we left off Nasa Isha. Is that correct? Good. Nasa Isha. So we'll say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 lines up from the bottom. So Nasa Isha. So Gemara says, Haguf Akasha. The Mishnah seems to pose an inherent contradiction. How so? Katani Nasa Isha Beretz Yisrael V'Gersha V'Kapotkia. The Mishnah talked about a case of a man who marries a woman in Eretz Yisrael and then divorces her in Kapotkia. So remember again, no shelema Eretz Yisrael. So the Mishnah said that Allah Chalamaisa, you pay her out her ksuva in Eretz Yisrael money. Okay. Alma basar shibuda azlina. So we'll say what that sounds like is the currency used for ksuva payment is determined by where the marriage took place. Literally where the shibud. Where did the obligation occur? Wherever the obligation occurred, that is the type of currency that you use. Look at Amos, look at the end of the Mishnah. If you married a woman in Kapotkia and you divorced in Eretz Yisrael, no silam b'mos Eretz Yisrael. Says once again, you pay with the Eretz Yisrael currency. Alma basar govaina azlinam. That sounds like you currency. The type of currency you use is determined by what? By where? By where the ksuva is being collected. So what's going on over here? Amar Rabbi, a contradiction. Mikule ksuva shanu. Kan mikule ksuva shanu kan kasav ksuva dirabanan. So we'll say this particular opinion holds that the ksuva obligation is a dirabanan. Ksuva obligation is a dirabanan, or at least the type of currency used. Well, we call ksuva obligation is a dirabanan. And look at Rashi. Kane kilo b'ksuva v'zu achas mikule ksuva. There are certain kulas built into ksuva because ksuva is dirabanan. One of the ksuvas, one of the kulas, one of the leniencies that's built in is that you could always use the lesser type of currency in order to satisfy the ksuva debt. So as we pointed out in yesterday's daf, the kapotkia currency is a stronger form, a more expensive form of currency. Therefore, one could use the lesser form of currency, the currency of Eretz Yisrael. And that doesn't make a difference whether you're getting married or ever getting divorced, as long as, now the key is, some part of the marriage or divorce has to be happening in Eretz Yisrael. Right? As we're going to see in just a moment, if at the end of the day nothing happens in Eretz Yisrael, then perhaps you can't. But as long as one of the stages is happening, you could use Eretz Yisrael currency. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, no simos kapot. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, you pay with kaputkia currency, kasav ksuva daraisa. He holds that ksuva is daraisa. And because ksuva is daraisa, therefore you have to use the higher form currency. So Tan Rabbanan, let's analyze. Hamos yishtachol v'chabeiro, kasuv bo bavel, magbel mimos bavel. Kasuv bo Eretz Yisrael, magbel mimos Eretz Yisrael. So now the Gemara brings the case of Raisa. Person, let's say, goes ahead, Ruvain lends Shimon money, and Ruvain produces the shtar. So now both say, let's say again, Ruvain lends Shimon $10,000. So both say, as you begin to see, there are different ways you can get paid $10,000, right? Is it American dollars? Is it shekel? Is it what currency are you getting paid in? So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says that halacha l'maisa, everything depends on the location recorded in the shtar. So if the location recorded in the shtar is Babel, you pay Babylonian currency. Eretz Yisrael currency. Kesuvos stam. What happens if there's no location? Because Rabbi say, remember, a loan document doesn't really require location, right? Let's say again, you happen to go ahead and not include any location. So what's the halacha? So then, if the document is produced in Eretz Yisrael, you use Eretz Yisrael money. Bavel money. Kasav bo kesef stam. What happens if it just says stam silver? Kesef, I should say kesef. So mashe yirtze love magbeu. Whatever the borrower wants to pay back in, he has the ability to pay back in. So whatever type of currency he wants to go ahead and pay back the loan with, he can. Masha'enki b'ksuva. That's Rabbi say now. This what we just said is not true by ksuva. So I hear which part is not true by ksuva. So Mashar Shia Aresha Lafukim Rabbi Shimon to Amar Ksuva Daraisa. The first part Rabbi say that we mentioned doesn't apply to ksuva, to exclude the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, namely that Rabbi say the Gemara seems to be siding with the idea that ksuva is dirabanan, and because ksuva is dirabanan, therefore what? Therefore halacha l'maisa, the husband could choose to pay it with whatever currency he wants to. Incredible. So kasav bo kesef stamash yir slova mabeo. So the Brisa said that if the loan document just says kesef stam, right, just says silver, right, kesef money, so Allah chalamayis again, the loan of the borrower can pay back with whatever type of currency he wants. So ve'ema naska, maybe it means a bar of silver. In other words, maybe the borrower could just pay back with a bar of silver, meaning repayment doesn't require currency at all. No, it does use the word matbeya, a coin, right? So the Gemara says, priti, maybe it's prutas, right? Prutas. So you can pay back $10,000 in prutas, which also would be a little bit onerous. So Amra Papa, priti de kaspalo avdi inchi. People don't make prutos out of silver. They don't make prutos out of silver. Okay, Tanabana. So we'll say, so now we're transitioning a little bit. We're going to have the incredible zechus. To learn some magnificent Gemaras about Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe will say, if we're not yet zocha to be in Eretz Yisrael, at least we could be zocha to learn about Eretz Yisrael. You know, whenever you learn about something, the Bnei Yissaschar brings down a beautiful idea at the end on Simchas Torah, very quickly. The Bnei Yissaschar says, Yom Tov comes to a close, and often a Yid, the Jew, feels a little bit depressed. Right? Because here Yom Tovim were so beautiful, so magnificent, so uplifting. Now Yom Tov ends, and what do I have? What do I have? You know, it's like a long, cold winter up until Hanukkah time. So Bnei Yissaschar says something so beautiful. He says, it's not true. He says, if you ever want to feel like you're in the sukkah, open up Maseches Sukkah. Open up Maseches Sukkah. Right? Learn the Gemara. Learn the Halacha. You want to go ahead and you feel like you're experiencing Tekiyah Shofar? Open up Maseches Rosh Hashanah. Learn about the Tekiyos. The Bnei Yissaschar says when you learn about something, when you envelop yourself in the Torah of something, you re-experience it. So if it works for Sukkah and it works for Shofar, then it works for Eretz Yisrael as well. If we don't yet have the zechus to be in Eretz Yisrael, by learning about Eretz Yisrael, it's a quasi-kiyum, a quasi-experience of being there as well. So let's go together. Turn Rabbanan. Li'olam yadar adam Eretz Yisrael. Person should always try to live in Eretz Yisrael. Afilu bi'ir sheruba ovdei kochavim, va'al yoder b'chutz haaretz afilu bi'ir sheruba Yisrael. It was an incredible statement. It is better to live in Eretz Yisrael, in a place that is predominantly not Jewish, than it is to live in the diaspora, in a place that is predominantly Jewish. Incredible. Why? This is pretty straightforward. It says, Shekol hadar be'Eretz Yisrael, dome k'mi sheyesh lo Eloka. Because anyone who lives in Eretz Yisrael, it's like he has a God. A striking Gemara. Whoever lives outside of the land of Israel, it's as if he does not have a God. Is that true? A person who doesn't live in Eretz Yisrael doesn't have a God? Kol hadar b'chutz la'aretz ki ilu oved ovados kochavim. So this was an attempt to make it better. I don't know if this makes it better, right? No, it doesn't mean you don't have a God if you don't live in Eretz Yisrael. It just means it's like you're worshiping idolatry, right? V'chein b'Davidu Omer ki gershuni hayomi stapech b'nachalas Hashem leimar lech avod Elohim achirim. So we'll say, right? V'chi Amar lo leDavid lech avod Elohim achirim. Did anyone ever tell David to go worship other gods? Elo lomer lecha kol hadar b'chutz la'aretz ki ilu oved avodos kochavim. That will say if a person lives out of Eretz Yisrael, it's as if they've worshipped idolatry. Now, I will say, these Gemaras require an incredible amount of explanation. Because what does this mean? First of all, many generations of great Rabbanim, sages, lived outside of Eretz Yisrael. So I have such a to share with you, such a ridiculously amazing Magid of Mezrich about this, but the truth is we'll have to move weiter a little bit. What I just want to show you is the idea that Chazal are trying to express to us, that there is a different relationship with Hashem, when one lives in Eretz Yisrael versus when one lives outside of Eretz Yisrael. And it's very important. Now again, are Chazal being a bit hyperbolic? Are they being hyperbolic in this? According to most opinions, yes. They're trying to make a point that there is, lest you think that the only nicer thing about Eretz Yisrael is that there are more Jews, or that the buses have their destinations in Hebrew across the top. That's beautiful also, right? Or that there's a siren before Shabbos. No, there's something spiritually, tangibly different about Eretz Yisrael, about the relationship that a Jew could have with Hashem is different in Eretz Yisrael than it is in Chutz La'aretz. And therefore, by definition, the relationship is so different that if you put them side by side, it's almost as if a Jew who is living outside of Eretz Yisrael is worshiping idols. Almost as if a Jew who is living outside of Eretz Yisrael has a different God, doesn't have a relationship with Hashem. Just when you put that side by side spiritual comparison, you cannot compare the possibilities that a Jew has for a relationship with Hashem in Eretz Yisrael versus outside of Eretz Yisrael. Incredible. So the Gemara goes right to Rabbi Zera, Havik Hamishtam K'nit Rabbi Yehuda, the by the Meisek Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Zera is actually a great story. Rabbi Zera wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael. He was avoiding Rabbi Yehuda, because he knew that Rabbi Yehuda was going to convince him or try to compel upon him not to move to Eretz Yisrael. Dumb Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda felt, therefore again I will say, what was Rabbi Zera doing? Most times, what do we do when we don't want to, confront problems? We avoid them, right? It's fantastic. It works for decades, right? So we'll say, so Rabbi Zera goes ahead and he's trying to avoid Rabbi Yehuda. So Dam Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that whoever leaves Bavel to go to Eretz Yisrael is in violation of a positive commandment. What's the positive commandment? Top of Kof Yud Aleph, Bavela Yuvo, B'Shama Yihiyu Ad Yom Pakdio Samnu Hashem. Now, we'll say he doesn't literally mean a positive commandment, because the pasuk they're quoting over here is from Yirmiyahu, not from not from the Torah, but nevertheless, the pasuk says, you will be brought to Bavel, and there you will remain until I redeem you. Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that Jews only go back to Eretz Yisrael, ultimately again, when Mashiach comes, when redemption comes, right? But Jews don't go back to Eretz Yisrael of their own volition. So therefore, again, Rabbi Zera really wants to go. He knows that Rabbi Yehuda, his Rebbe, is going to be very much opposed. So he avoids Rabbi Yehuda. So he goes, Rabbi Zera, so what did Rabbi Zera, by the way, do with that pasuk? Sahu b'kli sharis ksiv. Rabbi Zera felt that pasuk was actually not said regarding people, it was said regarding utensils. So meaning you don't like the kli sharis, which were exiled, will be brought back when Mashiach comes. I have Rabbi Yehuda. What is Rabbi Yehuda? Where does he learn kli sharis? Ksiv kra'ach Rena. There's another pasuk. Hishpati eschem benos Yerushalayim b'tzvos oba ayalos oba alas asada. Supposed to say there's another pasuk. Hishpati, another shvuah. That shvuah, he understood ultimately, I was talking about Kli Sharis. Rabbi Yehuda, what is Rabbi Yehuda talking about? Rabbi Zera, what does Rabbi Zera do with that shvuah? Hahu shelo ya'alu Yisrael b'choma. So we'll say Rabbi Zera agreed with Rabbi Yehuda in that there were certain restrictions upon Jewish re-entry into Eretz Yisrael in pre-Messianic times, which are, Jews can't go back to Eretz Yisrael with force. We cannot reconquer the land with force until Mashiach comes. Rabbi Yehuda, Hishbat Yachrina Ksiv. Rabbi Yehuda agrees with that, but he said there's another shvuah. Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Zera needed that other shvuah for another reason. Rabbi say, here we go. Damar, Gimel Shvuos Halalu Lama. So Rabbi say, if you look throughout these psukim in Yirmiyahu, the truth is, I'm sorry, not Yirmiyahu, in Shia Shirim, excuse me. In Shia Shirim, there are multiple shvuos. I should say, both in Yirmiyahu and in Shia Shirim, there seem to be multiple oaths that HaKadosh Baruch Hu administers to Klal Yisrael. So listen to this. Gimel Shvuos Halalu Lamu. Why does the Navi bring down 3 different oaths administered to Klal Yisrael? So we'll say the 3 oaths are like this. Number 1, Shelo Ya'alu B'choma. That I both say, in the diaspora, if Jews want to go back to Eretz Yisrael, we are not allowed to retake the land by force. Not allowed to retake the land by force. Va'achos, Shishbiya Kadosh Baruch Hu, Es Yisrael Shal Yimrudu Ba'omos Ha'olam. Shua number 2 is Kadosh Baruch Hu made us swear that we will not rebel against the nations of the world. In other words, that part of being in diaspora ultimately is being under the rulership of Gentile nations, and we will not rebel against that rule until Mashiach comes. The Achos, the third oath was Hashem administered to the nations of the world, that the nations of the world should not go ahead and afflict us too much. Should not persecute us too much. But I just want to point out, this Gemara, what we call the Gimel Shavuos, so I will say this Gemara serves as the fundamental basis to the opposition against Zionism. So for example, the Satmar Rav, Rav Yol was a great tzaddik, fiercely anti-Zionistic. I will say, I want to be clear. He was anti-Zionism. He loved Klal Yisrael more than anyone could ever imagine, and he loved Eretz Yisrael more than anyone could ever imagine. The Satmar Rav was against the concept of Zionism. He was against the concept of Jews now in the pre-Messianic era creating a democratic homeland. He felt that was not right. Why? Because the Rebbe felt it's a more complicated argument than this, but on a most basic level, Kadosh Baruch Hu said, you are in diaspora until I bring you back. That's the way it works. You're in diaspora until I bring you back. And there's an oath. There are oaths about that. Now, I will say, many counter the Satmar Rav's ideology with a very simple idea. The 3 oaths are a package. Number 1, don't retake the land with force. Number 2, don't rebel against your Gentile hosts in diaspora lands. Number 3, to the nations of the world, don't mistreat the Jews. Well, newsflash, the nations of the world violated number 3, right? They violated number 3. And if number 3 is violated, and by the way, for 2,000 years they've been violating number 3. So if number 3 is violated, many posit that the other 2 fall off as well. But I'm just pointing out, it is fascinating to see the opposition against Zionism, at least I'm saying from the Satmar Rav's ideology, was not a political thing. It's not like today everything is politicized. It was a fundamental machlokes in hashkafa, or I should say in halacha. It's not just hashkafa, but in halacha. And again, it's all this Gemara. Much more to say, but let's go weiter. So the Gemara says as follows: Rabbi Huda, what does he say? Im ta'iru ve'im ta'oreru. So Rabbi say he holds that halacha lamaisa, the shvuah against going back. See, Rabbi said, here's what's interesting. If you look at this, the idea about shvuah, about going back, the shvuah is upon the nation. So Rabbi Zera didn't disagree necessarily with the idea that there's a shvuah that Klal Yisrael can't go back to Eretz Yisrael. What he was disagreeing with as follows: he felt that the shvuah was upon the the nation. Klal Yisrael cannot go ahead, and decide as a nation to go back to Eretz Yisrael. But Lamaisa, individuals have the ability to do so. So therefore, Rabbi Zera felt that as an individual, he had the right to go. So Gemara says, Rabbi Huda, im ta'iru ve'im ta'oreru ksiv. Rabbi Huda says, in other words, we'll say the lashon of the pasuk is in ta'iru, if you awaken or you arouse. Rabbi Huda felt that the prohibition was both upon what? The nation as well as individuals. Incredible. So Gemara says, Rabbi Zera, so Rabbi Zera needs a double lashon like Rabbi Levi. Damar, sheish shvuos halalu lama. So we'll say, so the truth is, because the shvuos are phrased in the plural of im ta'iru ve'im ta'oreru, literally again, if you awaken or you arouse, so really the 3 shvuos, the 3 oaths, are really 6 oaths. So what do you need them for? So tzlas sahani da'amra. So we'll say 3 are the ones we just mentioned before. Number 1, Klal Yisrael can't retake Eretz Yisrael with force. Number two, we can't rebel against our Gentile hosts, right, in diaspora. And number 3, the nations of the world cannot overly oppress us. But there's another 3. So the Gemara says, Enoch, Shelo yigalu asakates. Number one, Rabbi say that the Nevi'im cannot reveal the time of the arrival of Mashiach. Number four, Shelo yircha kuas akates. Listen to this, Rabbi say there's a shvuah against Klal Yisrael not to delay the arrival of Mashiach. Rabbi say, hear this? The Klal Yisrael took a shvuah that we cannot delay the arrival of Mashiach. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi, second wide line from the top. Shelo yirach kuas akates ba'avonam. Rabbi say, isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? That ultimately, again, through our, we cannot delay the arrival of Mashiach through our own negative behaviors. Which of us, you hear what this means? Every single time I commit an Avera, I'm in violation of this oath. As if I didn't walk around with enough guilt. Right? So isn't this absolutely incredible? Our actions matter so much that when a Jew commits an Avera, literally, again, I'm in violation of the oath not to delay the arrival of Mashiach. Incredible. And number six, they should not reveal the secret. Also what they call, the Rashi says, the sod ha'ibar. Either it's the secret of the intercalation of the months, or ultimately others say it refers to other esoteric parts of the Torah. Okay. B'tzivos o ba'ayalos hasada. Amar Belazar, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Kadosh says Klal Yisrael. Imatem mekaymes hashvuah. If you go ahead and you uphold these shavuos, mutav, then we're good. Ve'imlav, but if not, ani matir es besarchem kitzivos kayalos asada. Literally, again, I will permit your flesh for consumption like the deer or like the hinds of the field. Kadosh Baruch Hu says these are serious shavuos that you need to take, that you need to treat with the utmost severity. I'm Rabbi Lazar. We'll see, here we go. It's incredible. Kaladar beretz Yisrael, sharoi below avon. I will say, isn't this incredible? If you live in Eretz Yisrael, you have no sin. The Nefesh B'Nefesh should put this on the homepage, right? Right? If you live in Eretz Yisrael, you have no sin. Your sins are wiped away. Shene Emar, because over the Gemara quotes the pasuk, Ubal Yomer Shachin Chalisya Ama Yoshev Ba Nasu Avon. So I will say, when the Torah describes those who live in Eretz Yisrael, it describes them as Nasu Avon. Nasu Avon, which means, again, without sin. Without sin. The power of living in Eretz Yisrael is simply, again, it erases one's averos. Amalei Rav Ravashi. Again, I will say so much more to talk about with this, but all right, we'll have a beautiful Sima Mir Hashem week from Thursday night. We'll talk a little bit more about these sugyas then. Amalei Rav Ravashi. Anan besovli chaloim masnin Allah. So Rav said to Ravashi, the truth is, I understand this pasuk as referring to illness, that Eretz Yisrael has certain curative powers, not to do with sin. Okay, Amrav Anan, kala kavar be'Eretz Yisrael, kilu kavar tachas mizbeach. Rabbi say incredible. Whoever merits to be buried in Eretz Yisrael is as if he is buried underneath the actual earth of the mizbeach. In other words, Rabbi say, what that means is the same way that the mizbeach atones, burial in Eretz Yisrael atones for one's sins as well. Ksiv hacha mizbeach adama taseli. Torah says, make me a mizbeach adama. Or ksiv hasam vechiper admaso amo. So we'll say, so again, the idea over here is the adama, right? Just like the mizbeach atones, so to burial in Eretz Yisrael atones. And I will say, by the way, it's very important. This is, everyone's like, why do we have this concept of being buried in Eretz Yisrael? Like, what is that? So I will say, we'll see more, but this is it. Because burial in Eretz Yisrael affects a level of atonement that burial in Chutz La'aretz cannot. Again, we'll discuss. Don't think burial in Chutz La'aretz is beyond salvation. Chas v'shalom. But Lamaisa, there's a certain kaparadik aspect. We'll say, but I want. Okay, well, all right. Look, good. Ula have a regal to have a salach Eretz Yisrael. Suppose listen to this. Ula often went to Eretz Yisrael. Nach nafshe b'Chutz La'aretz. So interestingly enough, Ula died in Chutz La'aretz. See, he often went to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, Ula lived in Bavel, but he would often travel to Eretz Yisrael. Interestingly enough, he passed away outside of Eretz Yisrael. Asu amlei Rabbi Lazar, Amar ant Ula ala dama tamei tamus. So they came to Rabbi Elazar and they said people were very troubled that Ula died in Chutz La'aretz, because ultimately, again, they said, Ant Ula ala dama tamei tamus, should Ula die in impure lands? Amar lo. So Rabbi Elazar said to him, don't worry, Aharon ba. He's being taken. His casket is being taken to Eretz Yisrael for burial. So don't worry. His arm is being taken. Amar lahem. Also listen to this. So the Amar lahem, he said, Eino dome kol taso mechayim le kol taso la'achar misa. You cannot compare someone who is absorbed by the land during his lifetime to someone who is absorbed by the land only after his death. In other words, Rabbi say, it's a beautiful thing to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. It's an even better thing to live in Eretz Yisrael. In other words, we say this every single day in davening, in Birchas Kriyas Shema, V'solichinu komemius liartzenu. Bring us upright to our land. Let me get to Eretz Yisrael on my own 2 feet and not lying down. It was an incredible thing. And I want to point out, even if you're a chassid of Satmarav, right? So again, you reject Zionism. Right, Lamaisa, remember again, this is Chazal talking, right? This isn't Theodore Herzl, right? I'm just saying, this is Gemara Maseches Kesuvos. I'm just saying, often we wrap up the beauty in Eretz Yisrael in certain ideologies. Eretz Yisrael is it's apart from any ideology. It's apart from any movement. Its Kiddusha is from the very beginning of time. And its importance has nothing to do with any particular party or affiliation. Its Kiddusha, its holiness, is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We'll say it's just incredible. Se'in Adoma, yes. So we'll say just see the progression. After the Gemara spoke about the importance of burial in Eretz Yisrael, the Gemara says, but by the way, don't think that it's enough just to be buried there. The idea is to try to get there when I'm standing on my own 2 feet. Pretty crazy story here. There was a guy on Yivama, so we'll call him Ruvain, right? Ruvain's brother Shimon passed away without children in Beichoza, outside of Eretz Yisrael. Also, he came before Rabbi Chanina. Should I go now to Beichoza, Shalib Eretz Yisrael, to go do Yibum or Chalitza? Listen to this. He said to him, Achiv nasa kusis umes. Your brother married a kusis and he died. Baruch hamakom shahargo. Thank God that he was killed. V'hu yered acharav, and that you should go to him. Now, I will say this was a little strong. Obviously, the brother didn't actually marry a kusis, because if the brother married a kusis, then what? Then there's no yibum. What Rabbi Hanina was saying was essentially he got what's coming to him because he lived outside of Eretz Yisrael. I will say, I don't know that this is our accepted hashkafa, right, or our accepted approach to these matters. The Gemara is just bringing this in, again, as a reinforcement, as a highlight of the importance of Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kashim Shash Shalatzes Eretz Yisrael Abava, Kach Asr Latzes Mibal L'Shara. So it was very interesting. The same way that it is Asr to leave Eretz Yisrael to go to Bavel, it is also Asr to leave Bavel to go to other lands. So now we're going to see, interestingly enough, after we finish with Eretz Yisrael, Bavel itself also enjoyed a very unique status because Bavel was a Torah center. Therefore, by definition, it enjoyed a different status. So even in Bavel itself, to go from Pumpadisa, which also was a Torah center, to Bekuvi, which was just a regular city. There was a guy who went from Pumpadisa to Bekuvi, Shamti Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef excommunicated him. There was a guy that Pumpadisa to go to Astunya, Shachiv, and he died. So I'll say Rabbi said if he wanted to live, he could have lived, meaning the fact that he left the city of Torah and relocated somewhere else, that was the cause of his demise. Okay. Rabbi Rav Yosef Tarvayu, Ksherin Sheba Eretz Sheba Bavel, Eretz Yisrael Kol Tasam. It was very interesting. Gemara. Rabbi Rav Yosef said the Ksherin, right, the people, the kosher people in Bavel are absorbed by Eretz Yisrael. Ksherin Sheba Sha'ar Atzos Bavel Kol Tasam, and the Ksherin in other lands are absorbed by Bavel. So the Gemara says, Lamai, when you say absorbed for what? What does that mean? If you want to say it's about yichus, that can't be because interestingly enough, all the other lands are considered to be like dough compared to fine flour when it comes to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, that in Eretz Yisrael, they are much more careful about yichus, about maintaining proper family lines than they were in diaspora lands. The Eretz Yisrael Isa Bavel. Interestingly enough, when it came to yichus, to preserving family lines, right, and being very careful with preserving family records, right? Yichus, Bavel was actually more diligent vigilant than Eretz Yisrael in this. Rather, what it means is for burial, meaning that the ksherim of Bavel were brought to Eretz Yisrael for burial, and the ksherim of Chutz La'aretz were brought to Bavel for burial. Incredible. So I'm Rabbi Yehuda, Kol Adar Bavel, Kil Adar Eretz Yisrael. It's just amazing how you have like this range of opinions. Whoever lives in Bavel, it's as if he lived in Eretz Yisrael. Very interesting. Shene Amar, Hay Tzion. Himalti Yosheves Bas Bavel. Amar Abaye, first one I will say, Bavel lo chazia chavle de Mashiach. Bavel will not see the birth pangs of Mashiach. So we'll say, which was saying that, again, I will say, here what you begin to see, first of all, Bavel, because of its proximity to Eretz Yisrael, also has a unique status, but also because, remember, again, Bavel became the Torah capital of Klal Yisrael. Became the Torah capital, right? With the structure of the first Beis HaMikdash became the Torah capital, and the truth is that didn't change. Even with the building of the second Beis HaMikdash, it still remained the Torah capital. So because that Bavel is afforded or accorded a special status, Bavel will not see the birth pangs of Mashiach. Tirgama ahotzel de Binyamin. Specifically, again, the area that's called Hutzel de Binyamin, the Karle Karna Dishezivta, and this they called it the corner of salvation, the corner of Geula. Amr Belazar, Mesim Shebechutz Laaretz Einam Chayim. Wow. We'll say the dead of Chutz Laaretz do not have the bracha of Tchias HaMesim Mashiach comes. Incredible. We'll say second wide line. Right? So Tchias HaMesim comes, those buried in Chutz Laaretz will not be resurrected. Shene Emar, don't worry, we'll say it's not the conclusion. So the Gemara says, Shene Emar, Benasati Tzvi ba'aretz Chayim. Right? Eretz shetzivyone ba'meseh Chayim. So what does it mean? Literally, again, I will give my tzvi, like my favor, Baretz Chayim, in the land of the living. Eretz shetzivyone, by the land that has my favor, i.e. Eretz Yisrael, mesim chayim. The dead will come back to life. Shein zivyone bi, but the land that doesn't have my favor, ultimately, ein mesim chayim ba. The dead won't come back to life. So it sounds like, again, Tchias HaMesim only occurs to the dead in Eretz Yisrael, not to the dead in Chutz La'aretz. Maser Rabbi Abba Bar Mamol, yichyu meisecha nivlas yikumun, my love, yichyu meisecha mesim shev Eretz Yisrael. So we'll say, doesn't that mean, yichyu meisecha refers to the dead of Eretz Yisrael, nivlas yikumun, the corpses will stand up, mesim shev Chutz La'aretz. So we'll say, so two different phrases for the dead of Eretz Yisrael, dead of Chutz La'aretz. Umay v'nasati tzvi. So we'll say, it seems to indicate that even the dead of Chutz La'aretz come back. Umay nasati tzvi be'aretz chayim. What does it mean when it says, I will give my tzvi in the land of the living? Nebuchadnezzar hu dichsiv. Rachmana. That's referring to Nebuchadnezzar, who destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. Amar Rachmana, my sina alei malka, the kalo kiltavya. I will bring upon you a king who is as swift as a deer, which was a reference to Nebuchadnezzar and his armies. Amrale, Rabbi, Mikra Acher Ani Dorish. Rabbi says, I have a different pasuk. What's the different pasuk? No sein neshama la'am aleha, v'ruach laholchim ba. Literally, again, I will go and give an neshama la'am aleha, right, for the nation that is upon it, v'ruach laholchim ba, and those who walk to it, which is a reference to those who die outside of Eretz Yisrael. Ve'ela haksiv nivlas yikumun. That refers ultimately again to us. It's actually incredible to miscarriages. So apparently, even miscarried pregnancies ultimately come back with Tchias HaMesim, which is absolutely incredible. Rabbi Abba Bar Mamol, Hai nosin neshama la'am aleh my avalei. What does he do with that phrase? Nosin neshama la'am aleh. Mi baile lichid Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba, afidu shifcha kinan sheveretz Yisrael. Muftach li shehi bas olam haba. Well, is incredible. He uses it to teach us that even a non-Jewish maidservant, Shifcha Kinanis in Eretz Yisrael, is guaranteed a portion in the world to come. Now, we'll say, Bipashtos olam haba in this context could either mean Messianic era or actual olam haba. Bipashtos, it means Messianic era. Ksiv hacha, v'yamalel, ksiv hasam, shvulachem poim achamar, madom alachamar. Fine. V'ruach laholchim ba, Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Kalamahalich Arba Amos Beretz Yisrael, Muftach Lo Shehu Ben Olam Haba. I will say incredible. Whoever goes ahead and walks Dalit Amos in Eretz Yisrael has a guaranteed portion in the world to come. And the world was saying, isn't that an incredible Gemara? All you need to do is walk Dalit Amos. I will say, now just point out to you, by the way, right? We have a mission of us that says, Kol Yisrael Yesh Them Chol Chelek Li Olam Haba. Whenever you see Gemara, so that's it. All I have to do is walk Dalet Amos in Eretz Yisrael, and suddenly I have a portion of the world to come. It's reminiscent of the Gemara in Maseches Brachos, right? Remember, we spoke about this before. If you say Ashrei 3 times a day, you go to Lama. So it says, remember again, I mentioned this before, the Ritva and Brachos brings down. Whenever you see Gemaras like this, the Gemara never means to say, this is the only thing you have to do, right? So I buy a ticket, I walk 4 Amos in Ben Gurion, get back on the plane, and that's it, I'm done, right? Check box, Olam Haba, I'm good. Of course not. Of course not. What it means is, walking Dalet Amos in Eretz Yisrael, combined with many other pieces of dynamic life activity, right, secures for you a beautiful, beautiful portion of the world to come. It's trying to highlight the importance and the kedusha of even just walking the land. Well, Rabbi Lazar, tzadikim shebechutz la'aretz einam chayim. So I'll say, Rabbi Lazar, tzadikim in chutz la'aretz don't come back to life. And I will say, if you say that there's no tchias hamesim for those buried outside of Eretz Yisrael, so that would that apply to even tzadikim? So Rabbi Loi al yidei gilgul. No. They come back to life, I will say, but there's what's called gilgul. Now I will say Gilgul doesn't mean reincarnation. Gilgul literally means their remains roll to Eretz Yisrael, and they're resurrected in Eretz Yisrael. See, I will say, when the Gemara is suggesting over here, when we say there's no resurrection, there's no tchias hamesim in chutz la'aretz, it means resurrection itself doesn't occur in chutz la'aretz, in diaspora. What happens is the remains roll to Eretz Yisrael, and we're going to talk about these subterranean tunnels, and then they're resurrected in Eretz Yisrael. But there's no resurrection outside of the land. Incredible. So the Gemara says, so maskif Rabbi Abasalo, Rabbi Gilgul Tzadikim Sarhu. But ultimately, again, won't this Gilgul be painful? Won't this rolling be painful for the righteous? Rabbi Mechilos Nasas Labakarka. Ultimately, Hashem makes these subterranean tunnels, and it's through these tunnels that the tzaddikim their remains are able to get to Eretz Yisrael, and they're resurrected there. Now, I will point out that Chazal also speak about the idea that the Gilgul can be painful. For tzaddikim, the Gilgul is not painful. For non-tzaddikim, the Gilgul can be painful. The Gemara says, so it says, remember again, Yaakov Avinu, when he dies, he tells his children, I'm going to die here in Egypt, but I want you to bury me in Eretz Yisrael. Amar Karna, Dvarim bego Yodea Haya Yaakov Avinu. Right? Sorry. Amar Karna, Dvarim bego Dvarim bego. Yaakov Avinu knew certain things. Something deeper is being said here. Yodea Haya Yaakov Avinu Shetzadik Gomer Haya. Yaakov Avinu knew that he was absolutely righteous. Vim Mesim Shebechutz La'aretz Chaim Lam Hetriach Hezbanov. So if Yaakov knew that he was righteous, and if the righteous in Chutz La'aretz are resurrected, then why did Yaakov Avinu tell his family to move his remains to Eretz Yisrael? Shemalo Yiskel Mechilos. He was concerned that maybe he will not merit to have his remains go through the tunnels from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael in order to be resurrected. Therefore, he asked his family to bury him in Eretz Yisrael. Similarly, again, after Omer Bayashma Yosef as Yisrael, Yosef also made his children take a shvuah to carry his remains to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Chanina, Dvarim bego. Yodea Haya Yosef Paso Shetzadik Gomer Haya. Yosef knew that he was righteous. V'meisim shebechutz la'aretz chaim lamet shriches achiv arba meos parsa. And again, if the dead of chutz la'aretz are resurrected, why did he go ahead and why was he matriach? Right? Why did he put upon his children to? Brother Yosef only goes and Am Yisrael leaves 210 years later, right? So why ultimately again does he tell his children? I'm sorry, that's incorrect, right? So why was he matriach his children to go ahead and take his remains? Shemalo Yiskel and Mechilo. See my dear boss say. So bottom line, are the dead of Chutz La'aretz resurrected? The answer is yes, but they're not resurrected in Chutz La'aretz. What happens when Mashiach comes? There are tunnels that connect Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, and the remains of the righteous roll through those tunnels. It appears that if one is buried in Eretz Yisrael, they automatically benefit from the bracha of Tchias HaMesim. In Chutz La'aretz, it sounds like one has to merit going through the tunnels in order to make it to Eretz Yisrael. Pretty incredible. Shalchu Eliachui l'Rabba. Yodea Yaakov Shetzadik Gomer Haya. Ilfa Mosef Badvarim. Maise be'echad shaya mitztar al isha achas. Supposed to listen to this story. There was once a guy, and he was madly in love with a particular woman. Okay? What was the problem? Long distance relationship. He was in Eretz Yisrael, she was in Chutz La'aretz. Ubikesh leireit, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to leave Eretz Yisrael in order to marry. And I will say, there are 3 reasons you're allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Number 1, marriage. Number 2, parnasa. Number 3, if the Rebbe you need in order to self-actualize is outside of Eretz Yisrael, you can go to your Rebbe. See, decide, you know what? I'm in love with this lady. I'm going to go marry her. Fine. Kevan sheshama kazos. But I will say, once he heard about this whole thing, the importance of Eretz Yisrael, the profoundness of Eretz Yisrael, Tchias HaMesim only happens there. Once he heard about all of this, he decided, Gilgil ba'atzma ad yomoso. He decided just not to get, right? He decided not to go. Now, I will say, interestingly enough, it sounds like over here, he didn't get married. Now, why he couldn't find another lady in Eretz Yisrael, I don't know, right? But Lamaisa, the point the Gemara is making over here is he was so taken by these Gemaras about Eretz Yisrael that he decided not to pursue the love of his life and go ahead and leave Eretz Yisrael. Incredible. So the Gemara says, "Afal pi shechacham gadol ata ena dome lomin miatzmo lelomin mirabo." So I'll say, he says to him, even though you're a great chacham, right? If you take a look, yeah, fine. So I maybe you'll say that you don't have a Rabbi, therefore you have to leave. You can have Rabbi to learn from Umanu, Rabbi Yochanan. Ultimately, again, who can you learn from? Rabbi Yochanan. And if you don't go ahead and come to Eretz Yisrael, go ahead and be careful with 3 things. What are the 3 things? Number 1, al tarbe yeshiva. So I'll say, it's interesting. So he's giving him 3 pieces of, it's just a continuation of the previous story. He's telling him, be careful with 3 things. What are the 3 things? Al tarbe yeshiva. Don't sit too much. She yeshiva kashla tachtonios. Sitting too much causes hemorrhoids. Okay? Va'al tarbe va'amida. Don't stand too much. Sh'amida kashla leiv. Because standing too much is not good for the heart. Va'al tarbe v'halicha. Don't walk too much. Shalicha kasha le'inayim. Ultimately, again, because walking too much is difficult, ultimately, again, for the eyes. Ella shlish. I will say, by the way, I have something, I want to share with you something I missed, but we have to at least turn the page in a Daf Yomi share. So we're going to leave. Right, Ella shlish. Rather, I will say, what should you do? Shlish be yeshiva, spend 1/3 of your life sitting. Shlish ba'amida, 1/3 standing, 1/3 walking. Call yeshiva she'eni masmicha. And I will say, this is simply just health tips. Call yeshiva she'eni masmicha. Any sitting that right, and call yeshiva any sitting that doesn't have leaning with it. So amida nocha hemenu. In other words, if you're not supporting yourself on something, so ultimately again the standing is better. So the Gemara says, Kol yeshiva she'eni masmicha amida nocha hemena. Amida, really standing is better. Amida Amida kasha leib. You just said before that standing is difficult for the heart. So the Gemara says, Ella yeshiva she'ein ba smicha. She'ein ba smicha. Rather, we're talking about over here, sitting, that is unsupported sitting. Amida she'yesh ba smicha no chaymena. So sitting in an unsupported way, standing with support is even better health-wise. V'chein amru Yitzchak v'Shimon v'Oshia. Amru davar echad halacha krab Yehuda beprados. So we'll say similarly again. We'll say we're just quoting some of the halachos over here from Eretz Yisrael. The halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda by mules. What did Rabbi Yehuda say about mules? The son Rabbi Yehuda Omer pirda shetava in mar bin alelo sus v'lo chamor elamina. If a mule wants to mate, we don't mate it with a horse or with a donkey. Rather, you only mate it with another mule. Amar Nachar bar Yitzchak. Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak, Yitzchak zeh Rabbi Yitzchak nafcha, Shimon zeh Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, v'Amrilei Reish Lakish Oshia zeh Rabbi Oshia bar Amar Rabbi Lazar. So we'll say good. So again, all just different attributions. So Amar Rabbi Lazar. I apologize for the pace at which we're going. It kills me. Mamish Kimi, this is such incredible Gemara. But all right, I have to make a little bit of headway. Amar Rabbi Lazar. Am yaratzos einam chayim. Amaratzim, ignorant Jews do not have the bracha of Tchias HaMesim. Right? So the Amaratzim are not resurrected. Shneimar, Mesim Bal Yichyu. Taina, here Bryce says, supports this. Mesim Bal Yichyu. Yachlu Lakol. Tamulomar, Refoim Bayakumu. Bemerape Atzmo Medivrei Torah Kosim Medaber. So we'll say one who willingly neglects the study of Torah. We'll say, by the way, in this type of situation, Amaretz doesn't mean someone who doesn't even know what they don't know. Right? We're talking about someone who knows. In other words, they know enough to try to know, but they make absolutely no effort to come to know. Such an individual does not get the bracha of Tchias HaMesim. To which the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Lo necha lemarayu da'amrit lehu hachi. So the Gemara says, but one second, is it a pro? As I will say, interestingly, Rabbi Yochanan was very bothered by this. Really? I will say, there's a lot of Jews who are Amaratzim. A lot of Jews are Amaradzim. So now you've just cut out an entire segment of Klal Yisrael, ultimately from Tchias HaMeisim. Is that the right thing to do? To which the Gemara, Lo nechel amarayu d'amrit luachi, ho b'merapa asal avodos kochavim. I think it means something else. When the Torah speaks about, again, refuah bal yakumu, that those who loosen their grip will not be resurrected. That's not about Amaratzim. Rather, what is that about? That's about someone who loosens his grip and allows himself to worship idolatry. So Amarle Mikra Achra Ani Dorish, Dichsev Kital Oros Talecha Ve'eretz Rafam Tapil. Kala Mishtamish Ba'ar Torah or Torah Mechayehu. Anyone who utilizes the light of Torah resurrects him. V'chol she'ein mishtamish ba'ar Torah, and anyone who does not use the light of Torah, ein or Torah mechayehu. The light of Torah does not resurrect him. So I will say, we'll stop over here with this. I just want to share with you one quick thing in the last minute we have. So there's this machlokes. Do are Amaratzim resurrected or not? Are they resurrected or not? We'll continue that machlokes and Amir Hashem see the halacha or the conclusion tomorrow. I will say, just to share with you a very, very quick idea on those last two lines in Amud Aleph. So I will say, so the advice that the Gemara was giving was be careful with three things. Al tarbe yeshiva, right? Al tarbe yeshiva. So be careful with sitting too much. The Gemara says why? Because sitting too much causes hemorrhoids, right? Don't stand too much, because standing too much ultimately again is bad for the heart. And don't walk too much, because walking too much is bad for the eyes. I will say perhaps what Chazal are teaching us is like this. Don't sit too much. I will say, what does sitting mean? What does sitting mean? Sitting means remaining in place. Remaining in place. Don't remain in place for too long in life. Don't stymie your growth. Don't be complacent with mediocrity. Because do you know what yeshiva, just sitting in place and not moving yourself in life, do you know what that does? It causes tachtonios. Tachtonios, I will say, doesn't just simply mean hemorrhoids, right? Tachtonios means like bottom, small-mindedness. When you remain in place for too long, you simply give up on yourself. You simply forget that you are incapable of accomplishing anything great. Next, al tarbe ba'amida. I will say, amida means standing in place, means a person standing their ground. There are some people who always have to be right. Some people who, all right, the world is wrong. The world is wrong. I know what I'm talking about. Everyone else says, no, I'm right. I'm always right. A person who's always omate, a person who always stands their ground, Kasha Leib. I'll say it hardens the heart. In order to have a soft heart, in order to have a leib that's receptive, you have to be nochem abrios. You have to know how to get along with people. You have to know how to be mavater. You have to know how to yield. You have to know how to give in. Life is not about winning. Life is about accomplishing. So don't be an omed. Don't be a person who always stands his ground. And if you do, it's going to be difficult. You're going to harden your heart. And lastly, al tarbe behalicha, right? So I will say, don't walk around. What does it mean? Don't walk around too much, because walking around is difficult for the einayim, for the eyes. So I will say, there are some people who are always wandering around looking for the next best thing, right? The grass is always greener somewhere else. I'm going to try this. I'm going to go here. This is this. They're always walking around. Kasha le'einayim. Kasha le'einayim means, I will say, there's a concept of sensory overload. There's sometimes if you spend your life always looking, right, at what others have, what others do, what's happening over here, instead of focusing on what you have in front of you and maximizing your circumstances, kasha le'einayim. Ultimately, again, I will say, it's sensory overload, and a person ends up accomplishing very little. So don't remain in place, because remaining in place ultimately causes small-mindedness. Don't always stand your ground. Don't always have to be right, because it hardens your heart. And don't spend your life looking at what other people have, thinking the grass is always greener. Maximize what you have right in front of you. I will say, shkoyach. Tomorrow, last daf of Kesuvos. Very exciting.